Our next presenter received her doctorate of pharmacy from the University of New Mexico and completed her residency on Maui through the University of Hawaii at Hilo. Yeah, tough, right? She is currently completing a fellowship in metabolic and nutritional medicine through the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. Please help me give a warm welcome to my good friend, health and fitness expert, Dr. Amy Baker.
But I'm really excited to be here. I'm so glad I got to meet a lot of you yesterday. This is really exciting. And my topic is big. So, I'm going to do some heavy hitters as well. Talk about toxic burden, what it is, give you some of the things to watch out for, and then hopefully some resources to help you reduce it. So I'm a pharmacist. After my bachelor's, I spent 4 years studying chemicals. And chemicals are in our body, everything. That's why we call it chemistry. I studied what they do to our body, what our body does with them, and how we absorb them. And what we put in our body, like Dr. Robin talked about, is so important. And what we put on our body is also extremely important. So here's a little, big words and stuff about what toxic burden is. It's also called body burden. But basically, our body has amazing capability of taking in chemicals, metabolizing them, altering them, changing them, and then excreting them through breath, sweat, urine and feces, yes, and also absorbing them. And then we have these toxins that come into our system through water, air, food, products that are in our environment that maybe off-gas certain toxic things. And what happens is when the toxins that are coming into our system overload the body's capability of changing them and detoxifying them, we have burden. And you can see the imbalance here. It's just like if you started weightlifting and you took something really large, you're gonna break down. And so our body starts to break down when the toxins are too high. So there are, as of last year, over 85,000 chemicals in commerce. And the Toxic Substance Control Act was enacted 40 years ago. And chemicals don't have to be tested for safety before they're released into commerce. And the burden of proof of safety or not is on the Environmental Protection Agency. So, I don't think our tax dollars can really keep up with proving that these are safe or not. And there's about 2,300 chemicals added to commerce every year. There's over 10,000 chemicals in, it says cosmetics here, but that's any personal care product. Guys, you're included too. Shaving cream, antiperspirant, deodorant, lotions, soaps, shampoos, conditioners, baby powder, like anything that touches your body is a personal care product. And only about 200 of those are tested for safety in humans. So I think it's pretty clear toxins can come from everywhere. Our household cleaning products, not only do they touch our skin, they touch surfaces and they stay there sometimes, and they release fumes. Our food, we know all kinds of toxins can come from those. The air, we have the Environmental Protection Agency trying to clean up our air as much as possible. Our water supply and whatnot. And this says beauty, but again, personal care products. And then what's not mentioned here is our furniture, carpets, and I'll mention a little bit more about that. So this may surprise you. 1938 was the last time that Congress passed a major law regulating the cosmetics industry. I can tell you that was before I was an apple in my parents' eye. In fact, that was before my parents were an apple in their parents' eye. So, and most of the chemicals that I mentioned, the 85,000 plus, have been put in commerce since then. European Union bans 1,400 chemicals from their personal care products. The US bans 11. Yeah, we're kind of behind the curve, unfortunately. So here's my pharmacy bit. Some people say, well, it's just a little rouge or a little this. It's not going to really affect me. It's such a small amount. 1 part per billion is equal to about a teaspoon of red dye in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. So anyone here use albuterol inhalers for asthma? Those can save lives. 2.1 parts per billion of the active ingredient albuterol can save a life. And 0.035 parts per billion of the active ingredient in NuvaRing, which is a contraceptive device, can prevent a life. So small doses really add up. So most of you probably know that lead paint is toxic. Lead is toxic to kids, to everyone, but especially kids, neurodevelopmental disorders, decrease in IQ. And back in '76, 88% of children 1 to 5 had an elevated lead blood level. And you think, well, it's in the system, it's got to be okay. You know, they all have it. And it wasn't okay. And it took a while for regulation to catch up. And when they realized that the lead in gasoline was toxic, the levels plummeted. And, you know, the levels in 2012 that were considered elevated, it used to be 10 micrograms per deciliter, they cut it in half in 2012. So we're still learning what level is toxic. Still, we're working on it. Average woman uses about 12 beauty products a day. Men, you still average about 6. There's about 100 plus chemicals in those products. The Environmental Working Group did a study on newborns, and they took the umbilical cord blood and they looked at the synthetic chemicals in them and found over 286, I think it was, chemicals in their blood. So it starts in the womb. Yes, and the majority of those chemicals are neurotoxins, carcinogenic, and not good. Another study, very small study, but looked at teen girls and looked at hormone disrupting chemicals and found the average of 13 in their systems. So the CDC, Center for Disease Control, is actually tracking chemicals levels in the population. And they put out this report in 2009. And these are kind of the big hitters. A lot of big words, right? Flame retardants, I wish I could touch on that. I'm not going to. But basically the Ps, the phenols, parabens, and phthalates is what I want to touch on, the big bads. Parabens. So first of all, the ones I'm mentioning are endocrine disrupting chemicals. Our endocrine system is vital to everything we do. When you throw a wrench into that system, you get hypothyroid, you get diabetes, you get estrogen dominance, which equals fibroids, breast cancer, horrible menopausal symptoms, PMS, any number of issues, brain fog, you name it. So parabens are used as preservatives in a lot of our personal care products. So you'll see propylparaben, methylparaben, so you want to watch out for those. BPA, you've probably seen BPA-free bottles, right? Bisphenol A. Oh, they finally realized that it's in plastic bottles and it leaches into our water. It's found in over 90% of people. And guess what? Lead was in over 88% of children. I don't think it's okay just because it's in everyone. The next one, phthalates, I really want to touch on because it's a plasticizer. It's in everything plastic. And not only that, you see the little circle, and it's kind of hard to see. If something says fragrance, even natural fragrance, I would say avoid it. So because of trade secrets, people are allowed to not disclose what is in their fragrance. They can have easily 30 chemicals known to be carcinogenic in that. So we have candles, air fresheners, whatnot. You're burning candles and releasing these fumes and you don't know what's in it. Phthalates are in perfumes, colognes. They're plasticizers that help the fragrance stick to your skin. You know that sexy perfume that you have that you wear on the weekend? Not so sexy anymore. I know it's scary, but there's hope. There is hope. Medical, personal care products, basically anything plastic. You know those toys you get for your children and grandchildren that they chew on? Yeah, probably not a good idea. For sake of time, I'm just going to skip this one, but you can see there, basically the cost of endocrine disrupting chemicals is high for some of the stuff we're hitting on. So here's the hope, okay? There's things you can do to lighten your toxic load. Reduce the use of plastics. Use glass when possible for storing foods, for your water bottles. If you do use plastic, there's that code on the bottom. Avoid codes 3 and 7 if you can. They have phthalates in them. And reduce the uses of fragrance. And it's in everything, laundry soap and shampoos, conditioners, it's everywhere. I have personally switched from perfume to only pure essential oils for that reason. Try having a never list. You can find it online. You can come to my table and grab a never list and keep it in your pocket. But here's the good one. The Environmental Working Group is a great resource, and they have consumer guides, and they have what was called the Skin Deep app. And they look like 64,000 products. You can actually go to the store and scan a product, and it'll rate it from 1 to 10. And they're kind of putting that into the Healthy Living app now. So they're in the Healthy Living app, they have Skin Deep, and they also look at household cleaning products and rate them for safety. So I am up for time, and if you have any questions, I know I spoke really fast, please come by my table afterward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See, we have time for a quick question here. So why don't we do there and there?
I was going to ask about Teflon products for cooking. We've just gone back to the old black iron skillets.
Yeah, that was the perfluorooctanoic acid on there. I just didn't have time to hit it, so thank you for bringing that up.
I think we all use baggies, kids' lunches, lunch to work, brown bag it, whatever. Is that a bad plastic as well? I mean, how can you store everything in glass?
It's a step at a time, right? I think, it's expensive replacing a lot of those things, but it's definitely a step at a time. And they don't know. So we have, BPA, we know it's in receipts, it's everywhere. They also have bisphenol S that they haven't tested yet. So we really don't know the effects of all the different plastics out there. So I would say, as you can, start reducing. Glass, there's also, you can use metal containers. A step at a time, and one thing at a time. That's why I tried to hit the kind of the big ones.
We need one more in the back there.
What about stevia?
Stevia?
Yeah.
As far as we know, that's food, but as far as we know, stevia is good. I don't have a lot of data about how the stevia is processed. Yeah, you can grow it. Yeah, it's...
Well, so some things, and I can touch on that a little bit as well, is okay. I would say of all the sweeteners out there, I'd say, obviously, no sweetener would be the best, typically. If you are going to do a sweetener, I would say stevia in the most raw form that you can get.
Yeah.
So if you can actually buy it right now, it grows right now. This time of year is a perfect time to be planting it. You can grow it. What I do personally is I grow it, and then I'll, like halfway through the season or whenever, I'll take the leaves, I'll just dry the leaves, just room temperature. I'll let them just dry. I'll take them off the stems, put them in a little baggie, or now in a glass little jar. And then what I'll do is when I have my tea, I'll reach in, I'll take a little bit of the stevia, I'll put it in my hand, and I'll just put it in my hand, and I'll just crunch it in my fingers into a powder. I'll just pick it up 2 or 3 times, and it takes maybe 10 seconds, and then it dissolves into a powder pretty good. And I'll just take that, and I'll do one last little grind, and it'll just dissolve into the tea. And it is something you kind of get used to because it's kind of the leaves, but it's a pretty good dust. You can do that. And then the next would be obviously the colored distilled version, and then the crystal clear version is usually the more distilled. And that's really where medications come from. Medications typically originate from a natural source like aspirin. Does anybody know where aspirin originated from? White willow bark. I heard some people say it. So white willow bark, what happens is a lot of like Native Americans, they would chew on the white willow bark, and there were some analgesic effects. So they said, well, what's it in white willow bark? And we realized it was a COX-2 inhibitor. So what they did is then they took that compound. Now this is where medications I have a problem with a lot of medications. So they take this, and now they distill that COX inhibitor down to such a concentrated form that now when you put it into the body, it's at a dose that you would never get in nature. It's at a much higher concentrated form, and people take it every few hours or every day that they would never get in nature. So you're taking what was once a natural product, and you can say, oh, well, aspirin is natural then, Dr. Gala. Well, no. white willow bark is natural. And when it gets distilled down, that's when you put it in your body, it disrupts which is why the FDA reversed its position, no longer recommends aspirin because it was killing too many people from strokes, causes gastritis. And we know that NSAIDs have been linked to over 16,000 deaths a year. Iatrogenic effects, meaning that doctors mess up, is the third leading cause of death. So in terms of medication, and even when I don't have the stat on the tip of my tongue, but even correctly prescribed medications is way up there ranking in terms of secondary effects.